the ladder, but let's start off with the USC Trojans, Russ. Let's take a look at the Trojans prospects because this is a team where expectations have kind of waned in the last year or two, but Lincoln Riley runs a tight ship. And what do you see from these Trojans guys?
Well, firstly, I see a lot of Lincoln and the whole staff there. Sort of, it's almost like this year, and you're never going to say, hey, they were planning for this year to be a down year. But I think a lot of it was we're looking at 26-7. They have a lot of good young players. They don't have a lot of guys that are seniors that are frontline NFL guys, but they've got some young guys, including their quarterback, Jaden Maiva. He's not a young guy, but he's not going to be in this year's draft likely. But they've got a lot of young guys that are going to be there. But they do have a veteran center in Reed, not a huge kid, under 6'3", 320 pounds, but he's been a good, consistent player at USC. I think he's got a chance to get into the NFL. I don't know if he's got enough to become a starter, but I like what he brings to the table. Their tight end, McCree, good football player, catches the ball well. I think he's an underrated athlete. You don't hear him talked about in the elite tight end class around the country, but he's a good football player. But offensively, you have those two guys and you got the quarterback, and a lot of it really after that is underclassmen. It's not like they're loaded with seniors. Defensive side of the ball, they got some really intriguing guys. Anthony Lucas at defensive end, sort of more of a power guy, because where's he going to fit at the next level? I don't know if at 275, 80, he's really going to be an edge guy. I think he's going to be more of a control power, coming in and doing a little three technique at the next level, but he's a really good football player. He gets pressure. He's got long arms. I like the kid. Their linebacker, Gentry, their safety, Fitzgerald. Both these guys are around the ball a lot. Gentry is that long kid. We talked about him earlier in the year. Not many linebackers that are over 6'6" that are effective because it hinders their ability to change directions. But this kid's pretty agile for a tall kid. He can run. He can cover. I look at this kid as sort of that guy that could be a multi-dimensional weapon at the next level. You could cover him. Cover tight ends with this kid, but he can also run and chase plays down. And I think in time, with some coaching, with some development, maybe add 20 pounds, he could really be that sort of designated pass rush guy because he's got the length. I think he's going to be a guy that probably doesn't go as high as I think he'll end up. People will look back and say he should have gone higher in the draft. I like him a lot. Fitzgerald, good safety, not the ideal size, under 5'11". Nicholson, the cornerback who transferred from Mississippi State, pretty looking kid, over 6'2", 200 pounds, long, linear guy, has a lot of the tools that you like for an NFL corner. And I know we talked about him last time. I like to joke, but hey, you got to look at special teams. Hank Pepper, their long snapper, not a big kid, probably doesn't have the size that NFL teams are going to want as a snapper because he's under 6'1", 215 pounds or so. Most teams don't like their snapper to be so little because they can get trucked. Even though you can't rush the snapper, you can rush the snapper and the guard, and somehow a 212-pounder gets driven backwards. But he's a good snapper. I think he's going to probably get a chance as an undrafted free agent. Always take a peek at your snapper. They're hard to find.
Yeah, very good. And also, you mentioned Gentry, somebody I think you got to make sure to do your due diligence because I do believe he had some concussion issues earlier in his career, and we'll see how that plays out with his draft stock. He's going to test through the roof. He's very athletic at 6'6", 225 pounds, very quick and explosive, can rush the quarterback, maybe plays off-ball linebacker. I mean, he's going to be an interesting case study. And then as well, if he does declare, Kamari Ramsey, redshirt junior, 6 foot 2/8 inches, 204 pounds, another athletic tester, isn't having a statistical standout season, but if you watch him on film, he shows up play after play, flying around the field. And you mentioned, Jaden Maiava, who actually got off to a hot start. The Hawaii native did, is maybe cooled down a little bit here. There was some talk maybe he could dip his toes into the draft pool. Of course, Lincoln Riley has 5 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League currently, so you always got to make sure you check in on the QBs there. And we haven't spoken about the 2 receivers, Mekhi Lemon, who I almost fully expect to declare because he's one of the top-rated wide receivers. He's more of the speed element of the duo between him and Jacoby Lane, also a redshirt junior. Lane a little bit bigger, 6'3" and 5/8", 195 pounds. And it's a little bit frustrating when you watch Jacoby Lane because he's so big, he's so athletic, he should be dominating. And you just don't see it. I've seen a couple drops show up, but I was expecting a lot more out of Jacoby Lane. I think his ceiling might be higher, but in terms of a step in, plug and play, speed burner type of playmaker wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon looking very good.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think when you look at underclassmen, I think it's interesting that you have Lemon, who to me, there's something special athletically. There's something there that teases you. The other guy you look at and you say, okay, is this that sort of Tarzan Jane guy? He looks the part. He should be better, but he doesn't do it all the time. And I will say, if you look at the history of receivers that looked the part, flashed, and then got to the NFL and made it, it's a very, very short list.
Tough.
Generally, bigger guys dominate in college. Sometimes it's the smaller, twitchier guys who didn't get that great production in college, who maybe had a few catches here and there, and they get to the NFL and the light goes on. The bigger guys, it usually doesn't happen because they've already been in an environment where they're bigger, stronger, and faster. And the fact they couldn't do it, usually it doesn't work out at the next level, which is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, a couple other Trojans players to be aware of. Wayman Jordan, somebody we talked about earlier in the season, stepped in nicely for Woody Marks, made some plays. He's currently injured, been battling some injuries. We'll see. I don't think he'll declare for the draft. He's a junior, and I do not believe Elijah Page will declare. He's only a redshirt sophomore, but they're starting left tackle at 6'6", 5'8", 320 pounds. Just another name that you need to know for the future watch.